How's it going, everybody? I'm Ryan, he's Abby, and we are the Expansion Bros. And today, guys, well, the World Juniors is over, and Team USA is victorious, coming away with the gold in a dominant win over the Swedes on their home ice, too. So, hey, Canada didn't even make it to the semis. You guys got bounced by Czechia, the bronze medal winners, and led by Buffalo Sabres' own Yuri Kulik.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, this was after winning back-to-back golds, sometimes you just have to sandbag a little bit, sometimes you have to bring some bottom six grit to a World Juniors tournament instead of getting the best talent available, If you want to win a championship, who needs Sidney Crosby? You know what? Canada would have beat the US even better in the Olympics if instead of Sidney Crosby, we got Brandon Prost. Obviously.
I question your judgment.
Of course. No. This isn't my judgment. This is the judgment of the great leaders of Team Canada's World Junior Selection Committee. We need less Sidney Crosby and more Brandon Prost. Oh. Now, yeah, if you hear me talking like this, it's because I'm referencing the World Wrestling Federation, who's oh my goodness gracious.
You're struggling over there.
Event I attended. See, I was mixing up my E's and my A's. Whose event I attended. SmackDown was in Vancouver on Friday, and very thankful my cousin got tickets for us to go. Had some wonderful seats, almost ringside, just on if you know where the boards are in hockey, basically we were on the boards, and then there's some more seats where the ice would be. But yeah, very cool, great show. Everybody loves Randy Orton right now, which hasn't changed for 20 years. So that's kind of cool.
I just love how you just asked, we're on a hockey podcast right now, if people listening know where the boards are in the rink. So keep your head up, Abby. Speaking of that USA-Sweden game, that got chippy. Speaking of keep your head up. That hit, I forgot who it was. I think it was the USA captain. Laid the boom on somebody after they got rid of the puck. Could have been interference. I don't know, but that game got chippy. Sweden, I feel like they never really kicked it into high gear at all through the tournament. Like the USA peaked down the stretch there. Like you could definitely tell that USA hit their stride.
Yeah.
They beat Finland, right? The USA played this kind of game. They got guys to buy in and play a role, right? You mentioned Team Canada not bringing all their stars because they wanted to bring role players. I think it's more important to ask your star players to buy in and play a specific role. I mean, for instance, Anton Wahlberg being more of a grinder on a line with Lekkerimäki and Noah Ostlund, instead of, trying to be this dominant, like, hey, look at me, right? And that takes a lot, right? These kids know that they're scouts and the whole world is watching, the whole hockey world.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's the thing about great players is they can do it all. Right? If you're getting the best talent, it's not like they're magically going to forget how to play defense, right? And especially, like you look at those Olympic teams, Canada, USA, they're not going and getting, third line defensive centers. They're getting like Crosby, they're getting like the great American players, right? They're getting these guys, and not all of them get to be on the first line. Some of them have to sit there and be shut down, like Ryan Getzlaf on Team Canada was a shutdown guy, right? You still had like Crosby as offense, or like on America, you had like Jamie Langenbrunner and Zach Parise, as like offensive options, but you had other great Americans who had to play shutdown roles. And it's the same in the World Juniors. You'll find, I think, one of the reasons Czech Republic did so well this year is they played their roles, and B, I think European countries have a bit more of an ability to have upsets like they did against Canada, because a lot of them play together a lot more than, say, the Canadian players or the US players, who play in different colleges, who play in different junior teams. A lot of those European players play together.
And just like distance-wise, right? You can play in college, right? But you're playing Denver and Boston University. I mean, they may see twice a year, right? They're not. I mean, they may have grown up playing for the U.S. national development team together, but that's probably the last time a lot of these guys have seen each other. But to that point, I'm just pulling up projected or guesses to what Team USA's roster could look like for the 2024 World Cup of hockey. I mean, you got Austin Matthews as the first line center, and you're putting Jack Eichel on the second line center, and you've got Jack Hughes as a third line center, right? So it's one of those things that you don't leave Jack Hughes home because you want a third line defensive center. You just have Jack Hughes play third line, and you know, you understand what that comes with, right? I mean, you got a guy that can, I mean, you're not leaving Jack Hughes home. And then, you know, obviously you've got Tage Thompson's not even listed on the roster. I think he's not even an honorable mention, right? So he's not had the greatest start to the year, although he has looked back. We'll touch on that later. But, you know, Tage Thompson is another guy that, hey, throw him on the wing or something. Throw him on the wing with JT Miller on the fourth line, and boom. But now let's go ahead and talk about some of the prospects that we had. I know you were basically locked in on Sweden. I was kind of all over the place. You mentioned Czechia, led by Yuri Kulik, who led the tournament in points, and you know, I think he did his job. He basically is the catalyst for the offense. He didn't. One of the things that he struggled with, and you know, small sample size and stuff, but one of the things he struggled with in Rochester too has been his transition game. In the World Juniors, you can get away with it because things are really structured, right? This guy will be our transition guy. Like, you can get away with that, you know, at the junior level and the World Juniors. But if Kulik is actually going to be anything more than a power play merchant, you know, more than what Victor Olofsson used to be, I definitely think that despite leading the tournament in points are great. We all love points. We all need points. But at the same time, I think he may need to work on that part of his game. We'll jump over to Sweden now. Noah Ostlund, I thought he was very dynamic. Obviously, I thought he was, you know, first line center, looked great. He had 3 goals, but 7 assists, obviously helping Lekkerimäki, your boy over there in Vancouver, to have a great tournament, 10 points in 7 games. It's great. And then +6, 52.5% on the draw. So Sabres fans that are clamoring for more faceoffs and more faceoff wins, maybe Ostlund could come up, and I don't know. There's a lot of roster stuff we can talk about. I'm excited to get towards the end of the season, not because I want it over or anything like that, but just because so much will clear up, right? Can Noah Ostlund become a third line center and we just bridge Casey Middlestat for 2 years? I don't know. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but what did you see from the Vancouver prospects when you watched the tournament?
Yeah, I'll touch on 3 of them. I'll touch on Elias Pettersson, not that one. Tom Willander and Jonathan Lekkerimäki. Pettersson and Willander were both fine. I think they played second fiddle to Axel Sundin Pellikka a little bit on that Swedish defense core, but I thought Willander was solid. I thought Pettersson was solid. Both of them did their jobs and were able to contribute here and there. Jonathan Lekkerimäki, if you don't know, was the MVP of the tournament, of the silver medal finishing Swedish team, and I think it was very obvious, like, especially if you watch their power play, their goal was to feed Lekkerimäki to shoot, and then if he scores, he scores. Otherwise, try and, like, you know, tip it, have a screen in front. It was very clear he was the focal point of an offense, and he thrived in that role. So that, as a Canucks fan, is very, very nice to see. We have a couple of holes, you know, opening up, you know, especially with the cap coming up. We're going to have to, you know, re-sign Elias Pettersson, eventually re-sign Quinn Hughes, Demko, all these guys, right? So we're eventually going to lose some depth here. Right now the depth's great, but eventually we're going to have to lose it. So we're looking for people to fill in those slots. And Lekkerimäki is looking like our most prominent prospect on forward, and he's looking great. And Swedes have always done well in Vancouver, you know, from the Sedins. You know, we had Matt Sundin for a little bit. Marcus Naslund, who I recently met, very nice guy. As well as, of course, Elias Pettersson, Alex Edler. You know, we just had Swedes for a long time, so it just makes a ton of sense. Lekkerimäki will hopefully, fingers crossed, do well here as well. And based on his goal scoring prowess, tied for the league, the tournament lead in goals. I see no indication as to why he can't succeed on this team. We got lots of great playmakers too, people who can feed him if he plays in the top 6, or, you know, the way the bottom 6 has been playing. You know, shout out that best third line in the NHL. If he plays there, he'll have plenty of fun as well.
Well, and it's one thing, I'm looking at your roster right now, and somebody who's really fallen out of favor is Andrei Kuzmenko. You know, previous 40 goal scorer, fallen out of favor. Wonder if Lekkerimäki is the guy to thrust him in and say, hey, in the next 2 years, can you go score 40 for us is a lot. But to go say like, hey, you are kind of our new goal scorer in the middle six that Kuzmenko used to be, but we don't like Kuzmenko anymore. I'm done playing with you, Kuzmenko. Lekkerimäki is my new best friend. Maybe he could slot in somewhere like that. And that's one of those things that when we talk about these World Juniors, it's so exciting to look at all these players and, Sturbach looked great. The right-handed defenseman currently playing at Michigan State looked, great as a Sabres prospect. Can't wait to see him potentially get a shot in the NHL next year, maybe 2 years away. If his development continues to look like it has, right? Great tournament. We've had guys that have been relatively unknown and then all of a sudden have a great tournament. Hello, Devin Levi, and get put on the map, right? But one guy that talking about spots, Matthew Savoy. Now, he only played 4 games. I believe it was due to an injury.
Yeah.
But, 4 games played. He was part of that 10-goal win. He got 1 point, 1 assist, was a +2. His analytics look good, but again, that's even smaller sample size. He's played about half the games of some of the other guys. And it's just one of those, he looked horrible in his first game. I was there. I was in the building, and I was there sitting with my buddy. We have season tickets together. And we looked, and we're like, dude, Savoy is like, he's not ready. Like, you see Benson, year younger, same team in juniors before Savoy got traded, I believe, recently, in juniors. And it was just like they're night and day different. And Savoy, I'm not writing him off, right? He's not like a guy that's he's got no potential or future, but you just start to wonder, does Kevin Adams look in a week or two here to potentially try and save the season, adding something to the blue line maybe, or I don't know, making some kind of move in the offseason to acquire a defenseman? I just keep saying defenseman because our forward core is like, there's not many spots there, right? And that's why we're saying move Savoy and some picks, maybe get something back. But so the list of prospects that I would probably move on from this summer, he's up there at the top. Now, I'm not saying actively shop him, but if you want to go, like, I don't know, Philip Hronek becomes available, I'd gladly give away. No. I know I said that to get a rise out of you, but that's the kind of trade. Like, you didn't see the Hronek trade coming last year with Detroit. You guys gave up a first. Wonder if some kind of trade like that at the deadline this year could position us not for the playoffs this year, but for the start of next season in a much better position. A guy that you can come in, get him acclimated now, and then hit the ground running at the start of next season, because it is tough. To just come in and assimilate and make a huge impact. We saw with Timo Meier, right, and Jacob Chikrin at the deadline, right? So those kinds of trades are in my mind. Yes, it's nice to have those talented guys because they can be stars for you in the playoffs, but it's just one of those things. You just got to wonder what's going on. Like, we don't have enough spots for all these guys.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think with sorry with Savoy, it reminds me a bit of the kind of Höglander and Podkolzin situation, where Podkolzin's kind of in the minors right now. He was a high draft pick, and you're expecting him to bloom at some point, but it's taking longer than you'd hope. And then you have Höglander at the same time, who was rocking it on that second line, taking, like, I think it was almost directly 30 picks after him. And he's already ready, right? So it's very easy to get impatient with these prospects, and sometimes this is a good time to see, like, if they are going to end up being busts, this is the perfect time to trade them when they're still going to have value. But there's also the chance, you look at, like, I'm sure the Blues don't feel super good about trading Tage Thompson now.
They did end up winning the cup in that trade. They won the cup that season.
That's true.
They got O'Reilly. They probably feel fine. It's kind of one of those, this stuff doesn't really happen all that often, but it's a no-lose trade. Although I feel like the Sabres have been kind of apart over the last, I want to say like 5 years. They've kind of been parts of the big deals have been no-lose, right? Win-win, right? Trading Sam Reinhart, who's going berserk in Florida. And we got Devin Levi and the pick that we used to take Yuri Kulik.
Yeah,
I'm fine. I love Sam Reinhart. I'm happy for him. I miss him, but it was the right time to move him. And then I believe we got Osland out of the pick that we traded Rasmus Ristolainen, and now I don't really know if he's
No,
a big
that was a
impact
win
guy.
trade. Rasmus Ristolainen absolutely sucks. That's not a win-lose or win-win trade. That's a win trade.
Which team is in a playoff spot right now, Abby? Which team's in a playoff spot?
The Canucks were in playoff spots with bums on their fourth lines during the freaking like we had Anton Roussel and these bums on our team during freaking our bubble run. Like that doesn't mean anything. That means nothing.
Well, the bubble's different. That's 24 teams out of like 31, but then obviously the Jack Eichel trade, right?
Mhm.
Krebs, a first round pick that I believe we used to. Did we take Kulik with that pick? I think we. No. That was the
you said Kulik was from the other one. Yeah.
I forget. I forget what we took with that pick. But anyway, we got Tuck and Krebs, and those two guys. Krebs is centering the fourth line. Tuck is a first line right winger who's putting up 70 points a season plus, right? Point per game last year. So I don't know. We've been part of these no lose trades, but like you said, these guys, they still have, they still showed some flashes at the World Juniors. They still have the scouting on them from their pre-draft process, and are now, looking. GMs across the league can still say, hey, I still believe in that guy. He may not make sense for your roster, but I think he's going to make sense for my roster.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of roster, you guys just keep killing it, man. JT Miller with 53 points now in 39 games. He's going to hit 20 goals here in probably a day or two. Brock Besser with 24 already. I mean, you guys have 7 players in double figures for goals already, and we're not even at the halfway point of the season. So you guys are on pace to have potentially 7 20-goal scorers if we project out that everything's going to carry over. But the goals are flowing. The good times are rolling in Vancouver. If I just take a look at your game log, how did you guys do recently?
Yeah, we went 2-1. We had a bit of a tough loss to the Blues. We lost that one 2-1. It was a tight game the whole time. A good performance from Demko. And then, sorry, I should go in order, actually. That would probably be helpful. The first game was a game against Ottawa. We won that one 6-3. And I think that was last Tuesday. That one was okay. Like, the Canucks were fairly dominant early, and then they kind of took their foot off the gas. Elias Pettersson traditionally does very well against the Ottawa Senators. I think he had 2 goals that game. So he's been heating it up recently, which is nice to see. And overall, Demko let in 3 goals, but I think he had like a .921 save percentage, so still quite efficient. I would say overall a good game, and it's always a good game when the offense shows up, as we'll see later. The second game, again, to go to the Blues, 2-1 loss in regulation. It was an okay game. Like, I wouldn't say the Canucks played particularly poorly, but Binnington was solid. Demko was also solid. But the Canucks just had 5 or 6 chances, 5 or 6 empty nets, and they just could not hit it, That good old PDO regression via shooting percentage, as they say. As someone
I know
says.
that's going to be the theme of this podcast. It's just, I'm going to be Ryan PDO. That's going to be my name. But I mean, it is happening. I'm looking at your stats right now. It's not happening significantly, but you guys aren't on that bender you were for like the first half of the season, where you're shooting your first game of the season where you won 8-1 over the Oilers. You guys had a 126 PDO, and we talk about 100 being the benchmark. I mean, good God. Yeah. I mean, obviously when you put up 8, but I'm looking at the stats, and it was one of those things. I saw that I was like, what the heck happened? Like, because I was doing my research. And I saw that Blues game, right? I'm like, they lost 2-1. What kind of game was that? Was that just unlucky? And you guys generated a decent amount around the net. I'm looking at the shot map right now, and there's like a lot of blue dots in that blue paint. Yeah. Just one of those games where it didn't happen for you. But everything came together against the Devils, it looked like, a team that's been fighting basically to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy with the skaters' performance in that game. Now, skaters includes forwards, and it includes defensemen. Unfortunately, that does not include goalie. This is not a great game for Demko. 4 goals against, not a great save percentage. Luckily, the offense bailed him out. I believe it was 4-2 at the end of the second, and then they made it close again. Actually, no, it was 3-0, and then they made it 3-2, and then Garland got a goal at the end of the second period to make it 4-2.
Seconds after.
Yeah. Very quick response to shut down that Devils flurry, and then managed to get an empty netter after the Devils made it 5-4. That was a very unselfish goal, by the way. Miller was on for a hat trick, and he passes it away to Dakota Joshua to get him to that 10-goal mark. So that was
That's
very unselfish of him, and I think that speaks to Miller this year. Is he's just been brilliant in every way. He's been great on defense, at least, well, great considering what we consider JT Miller to relatively be. I hope he gets more than one Selke vote this year, because last year that was very funny because he did not deserve any Selke votes, and him getting one was funny. This year he might actually deserve like 5 votes, so I hope he gets his recognition. But on offense too, he's just firing on all cylinders, and it's funny, we'll talk about this later, but the way the All-Star selection is done, he's like, what, 5th in scoring in the league, and he's not an All-Star? That's...
Yeah, it's something weird about the fact that everybody's got to have an All-Star, and then it's up to the fans to vote the rest of the roster, in which, honestly, I don't mind that, right? I'd rather... Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. I'd rather... I guess that is the only way to do it, because, listen, I've been a fan, that you've been there too, but being a fan of a team that's been down in the basement of the league, like, we have 1 or 2 guys that I'd like to see play, with Austin Matthews, right? We had Jack Eichel for a few years, Sam Reinhart, right? I want to see those guys go to the All-Star game because I know they're great. They're just not surrounded by the talent to make the team great, to get the recognition, right? So obviously, if you're going to pick somebody, Quinn Hughes is just having a ridiculous season. I think he's 2nd in the NHL in goals among defensemen, behind Rasmus Dahlin. But we'll save that later.
I was wondering why you picked that stat. You didn't pick points where he's first. You're like, goals. I'm like, where's he going with this? Oh, that makes sense.
Hey, I got to celebrate something. But,
but no. You do you.
You guys had an absolutely phenomenal game against the Devils. I'm just kind of skimming through the stats. I mean, the Cole-Juleson pairing, is that something that's like sustainable, or is that just kind of like they had their day?
I think they had their day, right? I'm very hot and cold on Ian Cole and Noah Juleson as individuals, let alone as a pairing myself. But I would say, like, compared to like last year, right? Noah Juleson being our 7th defenseman is very different than like Oscar Fantenberg being our 7th defenseman in the past, where it's like, I don't even know if this guy should be in the league, and he isn't anymore. So that's fairly telling.
Riley Stillman?
Tank commander? Yeah, oh my god. I remember he was doing okay for you.
He was good.
He was okay for you guys, and now look where he is. He's where he belongs, in the minors.
Well, it's one of those things too, though. You look at, we've talked about this season, right? System and player fit, right? And I think that maybe is something that Don Granato ignored this season for us. And we talked about it with the Canucks, that Tocchet came in, installed the system. You guys have the players that play that system. Kuzmenko is not one of those guys. Yeah. And look at where you are, right? You're flying high, top part of the league, right? I don't have the standings memorized or have it up here, but you guys are killing it. And it's just like, Stillman did not fit the Canucks system. I mean, obviously it's changed a lot. You guys went from Bruce to now you went from Green. I'm gonna miss some, but Green, Bruce, Tocchet, like all over the board here when we're talking like what kind of coach we got. So I mean, you guys finally have a roster that I think is meshing, that's clicking. You mentioned that third line, Connor Garland. I've always been a big Connor Garland fan, but holy moly, man! I mean, I'll talk about him every week on the podcast if I can.
Yeah, no, like, that third line is something you can set your watch to. It is the most reliable third line I've seen maybe ever. I think they've had a goal now. I can't even tell you how many games. It's been at least 10 or 12. Like, Joshua.
At what point do we call it the second or first line?
You know what? They're starting the second and first line are finally starting to score some goals. So I think we can keep them the first and second line. But yeah, there's like the Blues game. They were the ones who got the goal. Like, every single game, they're getting a goal. One of Bluger, Garland, or Joshua. And, like, not just getting a goal, like one of them stayed on with the first line. They're getting a goal as a unit, right? They got a goal as a unit, and Dakota Joshua got an empty netter out there with, like, Miller and Pettersson or something. Like, it's incredible to me. Like, they just have the ultimate. It feels like you're playing like NHL 24, and you've just got a line with +5 chemistry, and they're going up against the opposing third lines, and there's just absolutely shit kicking them. Like,
well, You guys have a luxury that a lot of teams don't have. Not many teams have two lines that are legitimate top two lines, let alone a third line that could be a second line on anybody else's roster. Well, I shouldn't say anybody else, but most rosters in the league, your third line probably is a second line. I mean, I don't know. With the production, I'll give you guys the credit. Talent-wise, I don't know. I really like our top nine. Like, I think it's finally settled. But, I mean, you guys have a second line as your third line, and it's obviously paying off.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, too, like, a lot of these guys were underrated. Like, Connor Garland didn't have the best year in the world last year. You look at Dakota Joshua, he was always kind of seen as that, like, it's like him and Nils Oman were, like, the guys we were expecting to play together on the fourth line, not the third line. And again, Teddy Bluger, you know, if you're listening to, like, Rachel Dory and stuff, everybody was like, oh, well, you know, ideally he's your fourth line center instead of your third line center. But they're playing really, really well together, and they're all showing, like, you know, if you look at those names individually, you know, you think of them as, you know, maybe Garland you do think as a third, second liner, but you look at Joshua, you think fourth liner. Bluger, apparently analytically people thought fourth liner, but they're going out and they're proving everybody wrong. Or maybe it's one of those things where together they're more the sum of their parts combined, right? It's they're doing really, really well together, and I'm very happy for them, and it's really helping us out right now because it's getting us, you know, in games that we shouldn't and helping us win games by a bigger margin and kind of give us that level of comfort, right? That extra goal, you know, without that, there's no empty netter needed and it's a tie game, right? So that's all you ask out of your bottom six is to contribute and make that difference. And you try to leave the big guns to do the rest. And they're doing more than their share right now. So hopefully they can keep it up, but far from sustainable, I think.
Well, it's just one of those things. We started the show talking about putting the right players in the right roles, and here we are again. You know, Connor Garland, I think, is the guy that's elevating that line, but one guy doesn't make a team. One guy doesn't make a line in the NHL. That's one of the things that separates it from, like, the NBA, where, you know, you've got Steph Curry, your team's guaranteed 20 wins because Steph's just
not
that
this
good.
year. Not this year.
Well, yes, but you know what I mean. But you know, you've got the guys they're playing, and you know, one of the things that I thought you guys always had, like, the forward core. You have the elite horses? Yeah, you do. Did you have the depth? There's a lot of depth guys. They just need to find the right mix. It was the defensive core. I mean, obviously Tyler Myers on your middle pairing looks like he's doing fine, right? I mean, he's one of those that I'd prefer him to be the fifth defenseman, but again, right roles, right pairings, he's doing fine. So and it's go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that it's the twin tower pairing of Zadorov and Tyler Myers. They're not the fastest, but I think Zadorov is actually quite strong defensively, so he tends to help Tyler Myers out a bit. I think it's still
former Sabre pairing. You guys have a former Sabre pairing.
It's no wonder that sometimes, like, you can tell when they're on the ice sometimes, because, like, that's usually when the giveaways are.
I'm used to that.
But there's still, like, it's still a massive improvement, right? Like, Tyler Myers is doing a lot better. Like, I think even if when he is on the middle pairing, they're making sure to reduce his minutes, right? Because Hughes and Hronek are really those minute munchers, and then you have, like, Ian Cole and all these other guys to eat more minutes as well. So that kind of lessens the burden on Tyler Myers. And again, ideally, like you said, Tyler Myers is on your bottom pairing. That being said,
and I think,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Like you said, I'm just looking at the average time on ice. You know, you obviously have Hughes and Hronek over 23 minutes each, 24-33 for Hughes, munching minutes.
Yeah.
And then your third most minutes is Ian Cole, who, based on the depth chart, is on the third pairing. Either way, you've got Zadorov then at 18:27, Myers at 19:05. So right there, he's like your fourth defenseman, third defenseman. So it is what it is. I think you guys, it's rolling, right? And you know, speaking of rolling, well, you guys apparently are linked with, according to The Athletic, Jordan Greenway. Where, like, do you envision a spot for him? Because they said he, I forgot who the article was by, but they mentioned that you guys were sniffing around Greenway even when he was back in Minnesota. So what do you see about that?
So a couple things to talk about there. First of all, there was always rumors of Besser to Minnesota, just because that's where he's from, for either Jason Zucker or Jordan Greenway or both. Very glad that didn't happen. Respectfully, of course, to Jordan Greenway and Zucker. But That was a good hold off. Thank you, Jim Benning, for not screwing up this team more than you already did. But Jordan Greenway is an interesting player. I think my opinion of him personally isn't quite where it used to be. He's a good little player, and I think he could fit in the bottom six. But as we were talking about, he would not be playing in our top six. Those guys are already set. If we were to get someone to play in the top six, they'd have to be a big time player. So he's not fitting on that first line. We're not gonna. It's for the first line is kind of Kuzmenko, or depending on how Talkie feels, someone else, Patterson and Mikheyev. That second line, again, depending on who's rolling, can be Phil DiGiuseppe or Höglander or someone else, along with Miller and Besser. And then the third line you don't touch, Garland, Bluger, Dakota Joshua. And then the fourth line, you still have Pius Suter, who often moves up into those roles when you want him to. Sam Lafferty, who's moved up into both those roles, of both the Höglander spot as well as playing with Mikheyev and Patterson. And again, both of them have done so, effectively scoring goals on those lines. And then you kind of have more of our depth like Nils Aman and the other players. The only place, again, I see Greenway filling is maybe that fourth line if you decide you want to permanently put Suter or Lafferty up on that first or second line. But
right, because you're not breaking up that third line. We just talked about how about how it's like a great third line, how it's clicking, how it's rolling. And it's one of those things, like, I see why you guys would like Greenway. He's playing on our third line right now with Middlestat and Benson. The line, everybody's got their roles. It's a great line. It's kind of exactly like when you do it on paper, this is what I want my third line to be, and there it is, right, with that, with them there. And I just, I'm looking like, who's sitting if Greenway's going to play? And not to mention, we haven't even started to talk about what you guys would have to give up to get him. Because I think that makes this conversation moot. I don't think, I know it's a report from The Athletic and they're reliable, but I mean, and you guys may want him, but I don't think a deal's ever going to be reached. But to my question, who would you sit if you had to play Greenway tomorrow night?
Well, that's my question. What is Jordan Greenway even worth, respectfully, right? Like, last season, he had 11 points.
See, last season, he was battling injury, I believe. This season, he's looked great. I love Jordan Greenway. Big body, and he uses it, right? We'll talk about the Sabres games in a minute, but you and I both watched the Columbus game, and one of the comments you had was Tage Thompson doesn't play like he's 6'6". Well, let me tell you what, Jordan Greenway plays like he's 6'6", and he just kind of like stiff, it's amazing. He just stiff arms people coming into the zone. I've watched it a couple times now. He scored that goal against Toronto, right, stretching the leg, basically a stiff arm there a couple weeks ago. It's just great. He's awesome at retrieving dump and chase, right? That's his bread and butter. Yeah, like he gets down low, and he finds Benson. He finds Middlestat. Middlestat then works the boards. Benson's just buzzing around everywhere, mostly in front of the net. But Greenway is one of those guys. He goes to the dirty areas, and that's why I don't like the idea of giving you guys to Greenway, because we don't really have somebody who does what Greenway does. Yeah. Also, I believe we gave up a second and a fifth for Greenway.
Yeah, you're not getting that back. Like,
well, that's
30
my
points, 30 points, right? I think that's what it's projected to get this year is 30 points. Like, it's not nothing, right? And I understand Greenway has a lot more to his game than just the points, but I'm just not sure what Greenway's worth, right? Like, if we're giving up a third round pick for Jordan Greenway, I'm okay with that, right? Like, I'm not to the moon, but that's kind of a thing where I'm like, if we're giving up just one third round pick, okay, this team's done a great job. They deserve a toy to help them out, And maybe Jordan Greenway with that big body ends up replacing Andrei Kuzmenko on the first line. Maybe Jordan Greenway, ends up being a good fit on that second line instead of Höglander, and you move Höglander down to the fourth line. Whatever it is, right? Maybe he's a fairly versatile player, so maybe you find a spot for him, but I'm not giving up anything more than a third round pick just because it's a maybe, right? It's a marginal improvement. We're not getting, say, Jake Gensel, who we can talk about in a second. It's not someone is a guaranteed top six threat who's going to do something. So you go, okay, a first and whatever else, you make it work.
Yeah, he doesn't, like, to your point, he doesn't make Kuzmenko benchable.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly my point, right? Kuzmenko has 40 goal upside. He's definitely not going to hit it this year. But like, even being benched, Kuzmenko has 19 points in 33 games. nothing to like write home about, but it's not bad at all. That's for someone who's being benched and then like demoted in the lineup all the time, like 19 points in 33 games is pretty solid.
But we talk about Gensel, and for you guys to get Gensel, first of all, you're going to have to give up quite a bit, which, with the way the season's going, you guys are eyes on the cup, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
It's not one of those, hey, we need a guy that's going to get us to the wild card, right? That's not what Gensel does. Gensel's the guy that gets you to the cup. But I then look at it and say, is Pittsburgh really going to want to give away Gensel? I know they may not sign him to an extension, which still feels crazy to me because their core is like 41 years old on average. And he's about the only guy that could, transition Pittsburgh to the next generation. But I mean, they're 2 points out. They are equal. They're a level on games played, and then 2 points out. They're behind. Tampa is the only team ahead of them on points percentage. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. Washington's the only team ahead of them on points percentage. But still, I know this is a report from The Athletic, but I just really, none of it makes logical sense if you look at both sides of it. Now, it's the NHL. Not everything needs to make sense. We've seen plenty of that. Rasmus Ristolainen went for a first and a second, right? Like, nothing makes sense anymore. But it's just like I don't see the fit for Greenway. I could understand Gensel, but are the Pittsburgh Penguins selling? Are you guys going to give up the assets like Lekkerimäki, a first and something? Right.
Yeah, I think I was talking about this with my cousin a little bit. So for Gensel, I think you'd want to, obviously you're right, first round pick is the necessity, that has to be in there. Then I think they're going to want a roster player as well, and I think Kuzmenko is the perfect fit. He has one more year left on his deal. The other thing we haven't talked about is that Kuzmenko, actually maybe you alluded to it, but Kuzmenko is a UFA. Or not Kuzmenko, sorry. Gensel is a UFA.
Yes.
So it could be a matter of Gensel's just not going to re-sign and they want to get something. Now, I also understand they're all also pretty all in, and ownership wants them to make the playoffs this year. So Dubas may not have a choice but to keep Gensel. And honestly, the Canucks may very well pursue Gensel in free agency if he gets there. But I think if we can, right, if Dubas can, because I think Dubas knows this isn't going to work, right? Like, he's doing what he has to make ownership happy, but I think he wants to tear this down and try again. So if
it's a tough look though. You go out and get Carlson. He's making 10 mil a season for 3 seasons after this one. You got Crosby next year. You got Malkin next year and the following one. They still have 18 mil in cap space. They have Tristan Jarry signed. They need to find a backup, but it's a backup goalie.
Yeah.
They have, I think, 4 defensemen under contract, 2, 4, 6, 8 forwards under contract. How much is Gensel gonna get is the question, right? We're starting to talk about how much is he gonna get, and does he fit into your guys' cap plans in the future? You're talking about having to re-sign Pettersson this year. You want to give out 2 $11 million contracts this offseason?
I don't think Gensel's getting 11 mil, but he'll definitely get a pretty penny, and I think that's where you have to figure out the cap, right? Like, obviously you have to move on from Kuzmenko, maybe Connor Garland, whatever it is. But in terms of trade pieces, you're right. It'd be a high-end prospect. I don't think the Canucks should give up either Willander or Lekkerimäki. I think you give up Hunter Brzuskevic, who was at one point was the top scorer in the OHL. By the way, he's a defenseman, and he was the top scorer in the OHL. So I'll let that sit there and speak for itself. But yeah, I think my quote-unquote mock trade, and again, I'm a Canucks fan, so please take this pinch of salt and a spoonful of delusion. A first-round pick, former almost 40 goal scorer Andrei Kuzmenko with 1 year left beyond this year. Hunter Brzuskevic and a future third-round pick.
Okay. I can see them wanting a better prospect.
Yeah.
I like the Kuzmenko idea. Again, he's got 1 more year left, so that's nice. I think Pittsburgh, though, if I'm Dubas and I have to, navigate the future, I'm going to try and get guys that keep me competitive, but also in prospects that are a year or 2 away, right? You just mentioned all your guys that were for Team Sweden this year. If I'm Dubas, I'm saying give me Kuzmenko first and one of those guys. Skip I don't care about the future third. Like, give me one of the 3 Swedes that just won silver. So
yeah,
that's what I would ask for. It just, obviously I'm a neutral third party here. I can just throw trades out like willy-nilly, but
yeah.
but yeah, I think going back to the start of the conversation, I think Gensel makes more sense than Greenway. I don't see the fit for Greenway. I don't think Kevin Adams is going to less than 365 calendar days from giving a second and a fifth for a guy, turn around and give him for a third, right? I think he fits a very good role. And I've really, really liked the Sabres lines now that we have a healthy roster. And that's, throughout the season, that's one of the things that's kind of been buried in the whole story of the inconsistencies of the young team Sabres, is that Jack Quinn was out until late December, and then Tuck was out. Thompson was out. Dahlin missed a game or 2 in there, I think. Greenway missed some time. Gergenson's missed some time. Oposo's out now, right? I mean, like, all of these guys miss games. That's like our entire roster's missed at least a game or 2. So, and now that we finally are healthy, you've seen us finally. I know, I can't believe I didn't start the show with this. We've won 2 games in a row for the first time since Halloween.
Woo! Yay, Sabres! Woo!
Oh man, I know last week was a rant mode. This week, I don't know. I'm not talking playoffs right now, right? But just to recap the games, you and I watched the Columbus Blue Jackets game.
Yes.
I thought that was a great experience. I got to, obviously after the rant, we stuck around to watch the Blue Jackets game. And you just could see the frustrations there. I think they played a great game. They were close to getting goal lead, but also Columbus didn't generate anything. Right. So naturally you were going to have this advanced analytics advantage. Right. Yeah. We're talking expected goals advantage, right? Deserve to win a meter on Money Puck. Yeah. Right. I mean, you're going to crush them because they didn't do anything, but you didn't really push the envelope. There were some chances that were crazy that they didn't go in, but I didn't feel like we dominated the ice. Right. It was one-way traffic, but in the offensive zone, they weren't getting to the high danger areas, in my opinion. And I think that led to us not being that difficult to play against. It's just happened to be our skill was greater than Columbus's, and that's how we won it in overtime. Skinner, I believe, was the scorer of that overtime goal. It was great. Great to see that. And then we move on to the game against Ottawa on New Year's Eve. A beautiful chance, a team that was, I think, 4 games into a brand new coach. Yeah, just came off a dominating air quotes, against the Columbus Blue Jackets in overtime, and you just get absolutely bodied by Ottawa. They again failed to win 2 games in a row. They did not capitalize on good high danger chances against Forsberg, statistically one of the worst goalies in the league this year.
Hey. I you know what? I'm a ride for Forsberg, all right? I think he's a good goalie. I think Anton Forsberg is a good goalie. I know maybe he's not having the best year, but I think Forsberg is capable of games like this. And I think, sorry to interject, I want to kind of compare. It's very funny doing this podcast with you, listening to you, and then actually watching Sabres games and watching everything you say kind of come to fruition on your screen. Even that Columbus game, watching them do all the things you said, watching Tage Thompson not go to the front of the net. And in fact, the one goal that did go in that we were watching together, that wasn't the overtime goal, they were banging it in from the front of the net. So it's very funny listening to this and being like, okay, all right, this is the Sabres fans rant, and then you see it all happen in live time. Like you see it in the Senators game as well. Like it's just, there's a lot of missed opportunities. And again, hopefully, the last 2 games will be a better indicator as to where Sabres are going as opposed to, the whole beginning of the season here. But sorry, please continue with the Senators game. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Senators game was just, it was a lot of low danger stuff, right? If you look at the stats, you're seeing, they had the Corsi advantage and they had the shots for advantage, right? They had 34 shots to the Senators 25 at 5-on-5. But if you go look, I mean, I use Natural Stat Trick. You could use Money Puck. You could use Evolving Hockey and just look for the dots. The Sabres were shooting from above the top of the circle quite a bit. Now that can work, but they didn't have anybody in front of the net. And that strategy doesn't work without net front presence. And then you this game is the perfect snapshot of what's been frustrating with the Sabres losses this year. It's not like they got goalied or anything. I mean, they did technically. He had like 39 saves all in all in the game. Forsberg did. But you look at the shot map. Ottawa has almost no shots from above the top of the circle. They've got a bright red heat map circle in the slot right at the top of the crease where you really don't want to give up chances. And Buffalo's got half their chances above the circles and then half below. So yes, you can say the stats look good, but when you watch the game, it just didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
And then we can move on to the next game against another Canadian opponent in Montreal. And Montreal, I've got written down here, Tage started to look back. Tage Thompson in the Montreal game did some things that I'm like, okay, Tage looks like he's getting his feet back under him. And then obviously you watch the Pittsburgh game. I mean, Tage Thompson did some Tage Thompson things against Pittsburgh. I mean, and there are things that don't show up on the highlight reel, but he's dangling between two dudes who are trying to forecheck him. He's like really in tight. He shoulders both of them off, toe drags, and all of a sudden it's a 3-on-2 and he's able to just dump it in the zone and get a line. Like that's the kind of thing that only Tage Thompson can do, that kind of thing. So that was exciting against Pittsburgh. But sticking with Montreal, yes, it was a 6-1 win. It wasn't a 6-1 game. It was it was a Sabres 3-2 game. If I had to put a number on it, right? 4-3, 3-2, depending on the goaltending. Really, the difference in this game was Levi played well, and Jake Allen
970, brilliant.
Yeah, and then Jake Allen played poorly. I mean, even Rob Ray on the broadcast was saying like, just throw pucks on Allen. Like this is not his night, and it wasn't. Yeah, I mean the high danger chances were about even. The shots, the Sabres had more shots, but again, they are prone to take further shots out. Now, the Canadians did the same thing, so it was kind of like a back and forth that way, but the Sabres got some puck luck. They did generate a good amount of chances down in tight too, which is ultimately the deciding factor. The power play. How do I not lead with the power play? I was just excited about Tage, but the power play finally scored. The Sabres power play, I think, has like 16 goals on 120 attempts this year. Not good for a team that scored over 300 goals last year, but they got 2 here against Montreal. They didn't score on the first one, and it looked bad, but the nice part is they got to the bench, they talked about it, and they're down the stretch. They got 2 by working down low, because the Canadians, Marty Baron broke it down and everything, but like the Canadians' penalty kill was very high, 3 guys high trying to stop the Sabres cycle between Dahlin and Thompson and whoever's on the other side at that moment. And then they would just move it down to Skinner and Tuck, who were both down low, and cross crease, bang. I mean, goal, right? That they scored both goals the same. Yeah, like they scored both goals just mirrored. Like it was. I would think it was Tuck to Skinner from left to right, and then it was Skinner to Tuck right to left. It was the same play. It was just like, man, Montreal, what are you doing? Like Dahlin at the blue line is not your threat here. It's Tuck and Skinner right next to Jake Allen, right? And then finally the Pittsburgh game, just watched it last night. Holy cow, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, take a bow. Because
absolutely.
Sabres took the lead 1-0 and said, we did our job. Good luck, Ukko. And then just stopped playing any kind of offense. Now, Pittsburgh was really good at stopping their transition, but man, holy cow, that Pittsburgh game I was just like this. Well, Pittsburgh scored 2 goals that didn't count, so there you go. That could be the difference, right? But that Pittsburgh game was just like overwhelmingly Pittsburgh, and you know they finally the Sabres battled well down the stretch, and it was like it was really weird because when they went up 1-0, they shut the doors. They were like, okay, we're done with offense, or they just couldn't generate offense. Pittsburgh changed. The game got open, right? And I'm like, oh, yes, please play an open game, because that's where the Sabres thrive, on the rush. Tage Thompson, Tuck, Cousins with Paterka and Quinn flying down the kids line. And then, you got Greenway banging bodies and Middlestat working the wall. Like, yeah. But it didn't, the Sabres couldn't generate anything good. It was honestly strange to see. And it was, thank God for goaltending. Otherwise they should have lost this game like 5-1. Straight up. This game should have been a 5-1 game. Now, maybe I'm giving Pittsburgh a little bit too much credit. They didn't generate too much high danger stuff themselves at even strength, right? They had that 5-on-3 for 4 minutes because there were 2 penalties called after the... Okay, Pittsburgh, you guys did not get jobbed. Offside goals are not the ref's fault. Like,
really?
If you get challenged and it doesn't count, you guys can't chant, ref, you suck, because the replay showed that he was offside. Like, it was baffling.
No, Ryan. They should have moved the blue line so that the goals counted. Come on, refs, do your job. That's Sidney Crosby, okay? That's the greatest player of this generation. If he's offside, you freaking say he's not offside, all right? Take that, Ryan. Penguins for life.
I did at the intermission flip to the Penguins broadcast because my subscription, I'm close enough geographically that Pittsburgh to Buffalo, I get the Pittsburgh feed.
Nice.
So I can watch the Pittsburgh. And they were like, well, that took away greatness, but like he was right. I mean, the play by Crosby on the first one where Crosby was offside was insane. Yeah. Now, because he was offsides, he gained a step on the defenseman, which allowed him to be in that position, but we won't talk about that. We'll talk about the amazing backhand chop that, Connor, I think his name is, the number 10, the guy, the Connor Sherry replacement, that random dude that's going to put up 30 because he's next to Crosby and Gensel. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not familiar with your game. I apologize, but no, it was great. He had an empty net to tap into, and then the other one was goaltender interference where Gensel smacked the face of Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen with his butt. So, his butt was in the crease. It was one of those, that's the one that I guess Pittsburgh fans are upset about, but I don't know. Personally, I think those are both rightfully waved off. It kept the Sabres in the game. The second period, the Sabres showed, I don't think I saw any Sabres players on the ice except for Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen that second period. It was weird, right? It was like 5-on-0 practice. It was crazy. And then in the third period, when Pittsburgh eventually tied it, the Sabres came back to life. It was like, hello? All of a sudden, they put on some chances. Zemgus Girgensons in front of the net, battling that line.
Former
Eric
All-Star.
Robinson, yes, former All-Star. And he battled and waxed at home, a 2-1 Buffalo. So it's this team that against Pittsburgh, right? You're not going to get your free rush chances. Yeah. You got to get to the front of the net, and Zemgus Girgensons proved it. Great play by Krebs on that one. Robinson, I believe Samuelson might have been the guy to take the shot from the point, but just throw it on. And then Girgensons picks up the loose puck, whacks it in, and it's not pretty, but it works. So until this team shows me the commitment to do that, I kind of feel like the game against Montreal could have gone either way. And this Pittsburgh game, I think I looked at the deserved to win meter. It was like 87% Pittsburgh. Like,
yeah. No. Like I'm a goalie guy, Maybe the Demko. This is a Demko shirt, by the way. The goalie branding was a giveaway, but UPL was goddamn spectacular. Anytime you can get 40+ saves with just a goal against, that's a dominating goalie performance. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't care if the one goal was them dumping it from the other side of the ice and it went in, and every single shot was a point shot you could see. When you're at that volume of shots, there's just anything that can happen. And obviously, if it's an NHL level game, not every shot's going to be an easy shot to save, right? And you're taking on Crosby and Malkin and all these guys, by the way, that first line power play had 4 minutes at 5-on-3. Yeah. And they barely got a tip in from Raquel with 8 seconds left. Yeah.
The penalty kill, I was going to come out here talking about that. I was like, finally, the penalty kill, they've been terrible all season, except for like the first 2 weeks. And I was like, oh man, they got scored on. It was like, you can't really, but I got to say, they did do a great job. You're talking Carlson, you're talking Malkin, you're talking Crosby, you're talking Gensel, and then Raquel for 4 minutes. That's at deadly. 5-on-3. That's scored 1.
That's a top 10 power play unit. That's an absolutely deadly power play unit on paper. Yeah. No, not really. But on paper, yes.
But now that we've gotten 2, let's go for 3. Right? We got the Seattle Kraken coming on Tuesday, and listen, I'm not all of a sudden after the rant episode last week, I'm not all of a sudden screaming we're going to make the playoffs, but you got a chance to go on a run and make the end of the season at least interesting. You got a bunch of beatable teams coming to town. Yeah. We got they're home for 2 weeks. The next, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The next 6 games are on home ice. From the 9th to the 20th, that's their home stretch. And then they fly out to Anaheim for the 23rd. But they're home. Like, they can practice. They can sleep in their own bed. They can see their wife and kids. They got, and the teams, it's not like you got the toughest schedule. I think Rob Ray last night, according to him, I haven't fact checked this, but 7th easiest schedule remaining for the Buffalo Sabres. So if you want to make the season interesting, go on a 7-game winning streak here. After, well, no, but I'm saying that's the only thing that's going to make it interesting, right? You can't. We're talking about it. We talked about it a couple episodes ago. A 10-game winning streak puts them in the conversation. Like, to make the season interesting, you need to get as many points as possible. Probably like 75% of these points here, including Montreal and Pittsburgh. Those 2 wins already in the bag. You got Seattle, Ottawa, Vancouver, San Jose, Chicago, and Tampa coming to your building for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
String them together. Seattle, they've played better as of late, but they're still not the same team as last, not a 100-point team. Ottawa, clearly you just got dumpstered by them on New Year's Eve. Get some revenge, and they've not been playing that great. Vancouver, I'm going to hope for some PDO regression in that game. San Jose, we know that they've got like 9 wins on the season, and we're in 2024.
Yeah, they are, by the way, they are 0-11-0 in their last 11 games.
You did try to tell me that they were not a bottom feeder anymore.
I was wrong.
A bunch of bumps.
Hands up here. I'm wrong. I was wrong. Dead wrong. Sharks suck. My bad, bro.
And then after San Jose, you've got Chicago, who the only player on that team that makes them a relevant and watchable franchise just fractured his jaw.
Yeah.
Connor Bedard.
He's not going to be there for that game.
And then you've got Tampa Bay, they're in it, sure, but they're not the same Tampa Bay they've been. They've got goaltending issues, right? I don't know if Vasilevsky, I don't think he'll be back.
They rushed him. They rushed him back. That was very foolish of them.
He may be back by then, but will he be back to Vazzy that we know, right? Like, these are very winnable games, barring the Vancouver one. Every other game, I'd say the Sabres are 50-50 to win, but that's been their MO this season. It's been 50-50. That's why your longest winning streak is 2, and it's only happened twice this season. And this is the second time it happened yesterday. So I don't know, man. Listen, we got the you go on a bit of a run here before the All-Star break. You make things interesting, right? Because after the homestand, you've got Anaheim, LA, and then San Jose again. Like, in the whole month of January, there's about 2 teams in there that I'm afraid of. Vancouver and LA.
Yeah.
And you know what? Those are cross-country trips where LA doesn't see us much. We don't see you guys, right? Anything can happen in those games. We don't have any kind of familiarity. So, listen, they need to have a phenomenal January. January needs to be amazing if we're going to talk playoffs at all. I don't know. I just want them to be fun to watch. Like, at this point, 89 points, take a step back, but be good to watch down the stretch. Like, just say, okay, the start of the season sucked. Let's go out and make some big moves, right? So, I don't know. At least don't win a few in a row here. Like, don't do this shit again where we lose, win, or actually not win.
No, you don't win 2 in a row.
Lose. We lose 2 in a row, but we don't win 2 in a row. So hopefully we can snap that streak. You know, like, make it 4 in a row. Take Vancouver to overtime. You're 4-0-1 in your last 5. Yeah. You bounce back with 3 wins against San Jose, Chicago, and Tampa. You're 7-0-1. You know, in this 8-game stretch here to start the new year. And then you go to Ducks, Kings, and Sharks. You can make it 10-1-1 in January. And then you're still 6-7 points out of the playoff conversation. I mean, it's kind of absurd that that's what needs to happen. But hey, could be fun games to watch. Team's healthy. Let's see if the boys can get on a roll here before the All-Star break.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, like you mentioned, the last couple of games, Tage is 4 points in his last 2 games. Big 2-goal performance on that night that the power play was going as well. Ultimately, you're going to ride or die off of your big stars. Obviously, if Jordan Greenway's banging bodies paws, as you said, and everyone else in the depth is contributing, like Olofsson and co. But ultimately, you're going to be bound by Thompson, by Cousins, by Dahlin, by Power, and ultimately by your goaltending. If you keep getting more performances like that from Levi and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, you guys have a real shot of, giving this a shot. But obviously, you can't expect 970 save percentages back to back. We
What do
talk
you
about
mean?
PDO. I think your PDO is going to be pretty damn high for these two games.
It wasn't even that crazy, to be honest. It was 113 in both games, which is a typical Vancouver game.
Hey, we'll defy statistics. You'll see. You'll all see.
But we mentioned it a couple times. We're talking about the All-Stars. Congratulations to Quinn Hughes and Rasmus Dahlin, our representatives for the All-Star game. And don't be guys, don't forget to vote. NHL.com/vote. Let's get some of the other guys on the team. We know what Dahlin's done. We know what Quinn Hughes has done. Who are some of the other guys? You get 10. I think it's 8 skaters and 4 goalies. Give us 2 or 3 Canucks that we should vote for.
Yeah, the obvious one, Thatcher Demko. He's been beyond solid. Played good 2 out of the 3 games this week, so we'll just ignore that third one. But yeah, no, he's the backbone, right? There are lots of games this year that Demko is just won by himself, right? And that's ultimately, I think, the sign of a goalie, is your goal is always to make all the saves you're supposed to and a couple that you shouldn't. And generally speaking, that's what Demko's been able to do for the Canucks. So that's obviously my first pitch. Another pitch is Quinn Hughes' defensive partner, who we mentioned, a fellow minute muncher of Quinn Hughes, Philip Hronek. You're only as good as your top pairing defenseman in this league, right? And ultimately, your top pair of defensemen. And we've had Quinn Hughes for a while. He's been good for a while, right? It's just, and yes, he's better this year than he was in previous years, but he's always been good. But people haven't noticed, right? It's because this year he finally has a stable defense partner. His best defense partner ever was Tanev, and the year he had Tanev, we went to the bubble. And we were almost made it to the conference finals. Since then, his best defensive partner has been Luke Schenn. That's not a joke. Luke Schenn.
Not great.
No, not at all. So now that he finally has Philip Hronek, it's been a world of difference. And even on his own, Philip Hronek has been spectacular. One of the better acquisitions. It's funny. You spend a first-round pick in a trade, and generally you get a good player. JT
You were
Miller,
mad about that.
Philip Hronek. Both times I was mad about it. I was at the JT Miller draft and I booed when we made the trade. I was like, no. But both times, you know what? Fair playing 2 different GMs. First round pick out the door, and we've gotten key players, freaking one of the top 5 scorers in the league in JT Miller. And my other, I'll get to him in a second. But my second ask for the All-Star vote, Philip Hronek. He's been just an amazing defenseman. I know at the beginning of the year, for like the first 5 or 6 games, Hughes and Hronek just didn't even give up a goal when they were on the ice. And, they haven't been that level of dominant anymore in terms of defense, but they've still been bloody spectacular. So my second ask you would be Philip Hronek. And, just to keep balance as all things should be, my third suggestion will be a forward, one of the leading scorers in the NHL, JT Miller. This is one of the more obvious ones, and I think if we weren't doing this participation draft, no disrespect, of course, I guess no, Dahlin would have made it anyways. Dahlin would have been an All-Star regardless. So you know what? This doesn't affect you. This affects more of the Boom Jenners of the world and all that. JT Miller would have obviously been an All-Star. So I think he's one of the easier people to vote for. Like, even if you throw my bias aside, he's one of the leading scorers in the league. Plain and simple, he's been dominant on both sides of the ice. JT Miller is an easy pick. I don't think I even need to justify it. But for those who like to indulge, sorry to cut you off, but for those who like to indulge in a little bit of trolling, Andrei Kuzmenko, vote for him. Piss off talking. Canucks fans,
that would be amazing.
Vote for him. Well, first of all, we all love him. First of all, it's only talking who doesn't like him. Everyone else loves Kuzmenko, okay? Everyone loves Kuzi. So vote for him for multiple reasons. A, it raises trade value. If he's an all-star, he commands more trade value, so we can get more for him. Second, show how we feel. We all love Kuzi. Let's say it's okay if he turns the puck over on occasion. He can score 40 bloody goals. Play him with Pettersson and Mikheyev. Third, he's just funny. Like, when he scores, he picks up in the air and celebrates. Like, he's great. He's Kuzi. He eats bananas and Pepsi on the bench. Freaking voting Kuzi. Sorry, I know I did. You asked for 3. That's 1 extra.
you need a personality guy at the All-Star game. You need somebody to like do something that makes the All-Star game memorable, you know? Like John, like nobody's ever going to forget the John, I'm not going to compare Kuzmenko to John Scott, but like the John Scott All-Star game, like nobody's ever going to forget that.
That was one of the best All-Star games ever.
Yes. And like Zemgus Girgensons making it for the Sabres. Like
that was awesome
for us.
Those are the two All-Star references I make the most, is John Scott and Zemgus Girgensons. So that speaks for itself.
Latvia took over, and I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I really can't. I can't disagree with you on any of those. There's nothing else that I would say. I mean, Elias Pettersson, just because of name recognition, and I mean, we all know he's a star. Yeah. I would like to see All-Stars at the All-Stars competition, right? As much as we want to talk about trolling and things like that. Yeah. So if we're going to throw in a fourth guy, because you can split your ballot, right? 8 skaters, 4 goalies, 4 Sabres skaters, 4 Canucks skaters, and then give each goalie. I mean, Demko, I was listening to you talk about Demko. I'm like, there's no way they keep Demko out of the All-Star game. Like, I know you guys representative is Quinn Hughes, but like Demko, I mean, come on. Demko's going, right? Like I'm gonna flip a table if Demko doesn't go to the All-Star game.
You flip a table, I might go to jail for a couple weeks. I might have to go without the podcast because I'm gonna go wreck some shit.
you guys have experience rioting, so I wouldn't put it past.
Yeah, no, I fed into the stereotypes. No.
Well, all right. So now it's my turn. I get to talk about some of the guys that I think the Sabres should send. I really don't think we're going to get a second guy at the All-Star game. I don't see it happening, especially, you know, when Mitch Marner and the Toronto Maple Leafs exist, right? Like come on. But the first guy, without a doubt, Casey Middlestat. Maybe his only chance at an All-Star game ever. But he had 86 points in the calendar year of 2023 in 82 games. Casey Middlestat also leads the Sabres in points. He has the third most goals with 11 on the team. He's one of the only players with a plus. And I think Middlestat is one of those guys that has had to endure really rough years here in Buffalo. One of those guys that, you know, everyone wanted to trade. He sucks. Get rid of him. You know, after his third NHL season, you know, and then now back-to-back years. I mean, 2023 was the Middlestat year. He really did go Middlestat mode, and he was dominant. And it's just awesome. Like watching him become the player he's become. I really do think Casey Middlestat deserves a shot, right? Like vote, put Casey Middlestat on your ballot, because I do think Casey Middlestat, I mean, leading our team in points, first of all, isn't a -13 like Dahlin, who's got the worst plus-minus on the team. You know, so Dahlin does play 25 minutes a night though, so we'll take that with a grain of salt.
Give him a pass on that one.
Yeah, I mean, but hey, Middlestat plays 1850 and is a +7 compared to Dahlin's -13, so take that for what it is. But that's easily my first vote. He's been one of the only Sabres forwards to be healthy this season. And the next guy I'll talk about is JJ Peterka. I think JJ Peterka has been phenomenal to watch. I think he's really ascended here in year number 2. Obviously, you guys know he's like my favorite player. He's at least up there, right? He's got 12 goals, 26 points, another plus on the Sabres right now. He's only playing 16 minutes a night, but I mean, watching him fly down the ice, he's really entertaining to watch. Does play a 200-foot game and does it with speed. I think watching JJ Peterka at a 3-on-3 All-Star game would be awesome. It'd be so cool to see him there.
Absolutely.
I think he will get other chances. This is not his best season of his career by any stretch. I know that there's more to come from JJ Peterka, but you know, you got 8 spots. You're going to use 4 of them on the Sabres. Put JJ Peterka in there, right? And then finally, you did 3, I'll do 3. Jeff Skinner. I think Jeff Skinner is continuing to just shake off the Ralph Kruger effect. You're talking about sending guys that can score 40 to the All-Star game. He scored 40. He's
true.
Coming off back-to-back seasons of 33 and 35. He was 82 points and 79 last season. Right now, he's got 16 goals in 37 games, 31 points in those 37 games as well. So he's not just a goal scorer. He can kind of do it all. He's one of those half a point, half a goal per game kind of guys. So Jeff Skinner, fun to watch. Would love to hear him mic'd up. Oh my God, Jeff Skinner, hilarious. Like the chirps when Jeff Skinner gets engaged It is fun to watch, and he was chirping Domi the other night against Toronto, where he was talking about his teeth or lack thereof. So and especially Marty Baron's even said this during the intermissions and stuff. Like when Skinner gets going, he's like, "What is that squeaking noise?" Because his voice gets very high pitched. And if you've ever heard Jeff Skinner mic'd up, you'll know that it's hey, over here, and
it's Mickey Mouse.
It's literally like that. But I think Jeff Skinner would be, just a fun addition, and I think he deserves it, right? I don't know if he's been to the All-Star game. I think
at least once.
I think he was there last year. I'm not sure about that. I'm trying to. There's nothing really here that tells me if they were at the All-Star game, right? I think he was there when he played for Carolina. I think he was there when he scored 40 in Buffalo his first season here.
He must.
Don't know if we've sent him back since, but I think he's a guy that would be fun to watch at the All-Star game. So you got 8 spots. There's 3 Canucks. There's 3 Sabres. Also maybe 2 spots for your own favorite players, or you can pick some 1 or 2 of us. Listen, I'd love to say send one of our goalies. Don't think any of them really deserve it. They've been hot. They've been cold. Yes, some of it's been the team, but also some of it has been their own doing. So unlike Demko, don't think there's a Sabres goalie deserving and should be there. There's no, if the Sabres goalie doesn't make it, I'm flipping no tables. I'm dusting the table, actually. But no, I think I'm excited. They won 2 in a row. They didn't look good doing it, but they did it. Maybe that's got some confidence. The Canucks, Can you keep it rolling? I'm really loving to see you guys just continue, right? One of the worst things that I was thinking is we were going to start this podcast. You guys were going to be at the top. And then the second we recorded episode 1, you guys would just nosedive, go 2-12-2 in your last 14 or something like that. And then we're both just depressed, but at least one of us gets to be happy. But I hope you guys are happy too. That is all we have. Happy New Year, everybody. I know this is the second episode of the year, but technically it's our first week of 2024. Hope you guys had a good one. If you are new, make sure to subscribe to the podcast. If you enjoyed it, leave a 5-star rating. Tell your friends. And give us a listen again next week. Every Monday, you know where to find us. And we will see you guys there.
Peace.